Now normally, one wouldn't go to a Bonhams auction looking for a Concours de Le Mans car, but we found a few at the Scottsdale 2024 auction, and we're going to check it out in the Concours de Le Mans Market Report.
Let's check out the first one.
Lot number 11 is a 1957 Reliant Regal Mark III. The Regal is the father of the Reliant Robin. In 1952, Reliant released their first passenger car, the not ironically named Regal. With a box-section chassis, ash-framed aluminum body, and 16 brake horsepower, it took some pushing to get a Regal to 60 miles per hour, but it was an efficient and practical city car. In 1956, the Regal was redesigned with an ash-framed fiberglass body, used on all subsequent Reliants, with saloon or open tourer configuration. Reliant later released its own all-aluminum engine, and the Regal remained in production until 1973, when the Robin took its place. Benefits of the three-wheeled Reliant were that it could be run with a motorcycle license to save on road tax, it was economical to run, yet was more car-like than rivals such as the Bond minicar. The example offered here features a 747cc side-valve inline four-cylinder engine, single downdraft carburetor, 16 brake horsepower, 4-speed manual synchromesh gearbox, single front swing arm and coilover damper, and 3-wheel drum brakes. A uniquely charming microcar that is a must-have for any collection. The most fun you can have on 3 wheels.
When a Reliant Robin isn't quite dangerous enough for you, you go for the Reliant Regal. What's not to love? 3 wheels, a danger of tipping over, and it's old and rickety. What did this one sell for? At the Hammer with auction fees, it sold for $11,760. Next across the block was another small English car.
Lot number 6 is a 1960 Hilman Mink. First used by Hilman in 1932, the Mink's name continued on the company's medium-sized saloon in the post-war era. All post-war Minxes featured unitary construction bodies, and by the mid-1950s the old side-valve engine had been phased out in favor of a new 1,390cc overhead valve power unit. The latter was enlarged to 1,494cc on the Mink Series 3 of 1958, the latter gaining distinctive tail fins for 1959 when it became the 3A. The 1950s to 60s generation of Hilmans drew influence from Raymond Loewy designs. Given that, it is perhaps surprising that the cars struggled to gain sales traction. Ultimately, they were deemed to be a little too austere in their appointments, and by American standards underpowered. Priced in close parity to a Corvette for a deluxe version, in retrospect it is not too surprising which option the vast majority of buyers chose. The example offered here features a 1,494cc overhead valve 4-cylinder inline engine, a single Zenith carburetor, 57 brake horsepower at 4,400 revolutions per minute, 3-speed manual transmission with extra low gear, front suspension by coil spring, leaf spring rear suspension, 4-wheel drum brakes. It is believed to be one of 36 surviving cars in the United States.
Now, I've talked with the owner of this car. It was very well restored. The restoration had to cost much more than was realized here at this auction. Conley leather inside, about 45 miles an hour on the freeway. Let's see what it sold for. Hammer price including auction fees was $16,800. Looking for something a little more reliable than a British car? How about a 1967 Toyota Corona?
Lot number 9, a 1967 Toyota Corona 1900 Deluxe. Toyota dabbled in the USA starting in the 1950s but struggled to establish a foothold in the world's most important car market. In the early 1960s, they bowed out temporarily to revise the range and return with a more export-friendly lineup. The gamble paid off, and Toyota fostered a reputation for quality, dependability and value. Compact by standards of the day, the mid-sized Corona was an outstanding family car. Powered by a 1.9-litre, 3R, inline-4 making a useful 90 horsepower, and available with an automatic transmission and deluxe trim to appeal to feature-hungry American buyers. With handsome straight-edge styling and a distinctive angled front-end treatment, it successfully shed Toyota's previously stodgy image and set the stage for their remarkable success in the USA. This 1967 Corona 1900 Deluxe originally hails from Huntington, West Virginia, where it was sold new by Rich Toyota. What makes this car particularly special is that it was the very first car sold by the fledgling Toyota dealership. When the first owner traded it back a few years later, the dealer principal, Mr. Chris Wallace, jumped at the chance to keep the car and display it in his showroom, and it stayed there until the late 2000s. The Toyota Corona passed through the hands of other collectors who, thankfully, recognized its rarity and exceptionally original condition, including the consignor. Through the years, this rare Corona Deluxe has been wonderfully preserved, down to its rare original toolkit, and it survives as a delightful display of Toyota's enduring legacy of quality. It is wonderfully preserved and shows 21,100 gentle, original miles. It features a 1,879cc OHV inline 4-cylinder engine, a single downdraft carburetor, 90 brake horsepower at 4,600 revolutions per minute, 2-speed Toyo Glide automatic transmission, unequal length A-arm front, solid axle rear suspension, front disc, rear drum brakes.
The Toyota Corona is dead reliable. I know, I had one in high school and beat the heck out of it. This seems to be the lowest miles, nicest original Toyota Corona in the country. What did it sell for? Hammer price including auction fees was $12,300. Now moving upscale but still different and kinda weird is our next car from England.
Lot number 55 is a 1953 Bristol 401 Sports Coupe. The Bristol Aeroplane Company built planes for England during both World War I and World War II. As the Second World War wound down, the company turned to automobile manufacturing to help support the bottom line. Bristol began working with a company that had imported BMWs before the war and was the manufacturer of Fraser-Nash cars post-war. They laid plans for a joint venture in automotive manufacture. With the introduction of the 401 in 1948, the first of its exquisitely styled aerodynes, Bristol began to move away from the pre-war design the company had inherited from BMW. Carrozzeria Touring provided the superleggera method of body construction that overlaid alloy panels on a tubular steel framework, while the low-drag shape was honed in Bristol's wind tunnel. It had been intended that the Milan-based Carrozzeria would build the first 200 cars, but this idea was abandoned after a mere handful of prototypes. The 401 continued to use the BMW-based 2.0-litre, 6-cylinder engine with its ingeniously arranged, pushrod-operated inclined valves, paired to a 4-speed gearbox. The 401's aircraft standard of construction did not come cheap, however. At £2,270 it cost as much as an Aston Martin DB2, and only 611 of these exclusive cars found customers between 1948 and 1953. The car offered for sale today appears to have had a simple life in a drier climate, and had a light refurbishment of its cosmetics, including a repaint in black and renewal of the interior in tan leather, while it appears to retain all its hallmark features from the Batman steering wheel to instruments and a radio including Foxon speaker to its interior roof. Its exterior is nicely accented with chrome trims and white wall tires. The car features a 1,971cc overhead valve inline 6-cylinder engine, 3 Solex downdraft carburetors, 85 brake horsepower at 4,500 revolutions per minute, 4-speed manual transmission, 4-wheel drum brakes. First of the Aerodyne Bristols. This example is one of only 611 made.
The Queen rode in a Bentley, the Prime Minister rode in a Jaguar, members of Parliament and the bourgeoisie rode around in Bristols. What did this beautiful, weird British car sell for? Hammer price including auction fees was $39,200. We hope you enjoyed looking at some of the weird and wonderful cars that were for sale at the Bonhams January 2024 auction in Scottsdale. Check out our other market report videos for more weird and wacky cars that you can buy and bring to the Concours de Le Mans.